Okay, so live. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me on Legal Cheek's first ever TikTok live, which is exciting. Now the aim of this live is to address some of the common queries we've heard from aspiring solicitors on the hunt to secure a training contract or a vacation scheme. Please do make sure you follow us and leave any questions you have in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as we go along. It's probably best to sort of start off by introducing myself a little bit so that you know a little bit about me. So I'm Rona, I'm an events coordinator at Legal Cheek and a future trainee at an international firm. I studied at Newcastle University and did a degree in law with European legal studies, which basically just means I did a law degree with a year abroad between my second and final year. If you are currently doing your degree or you haven't yet started, I'd very much recommend it. I graduated in 2020 without a training contract, and the plans that I did have for after graduating got a little bit scuppered by the pandemic. So in summer of 2020, I did the Legal Cheek virtual VAC scheme and connected with some fellow aspiring solicitors, which was great. Connected with them on LinkedIn. And one of my connections shared a post about an organisation called Aspiring Solicitors. And I looked into them. Off the back of that, I sort of did a coaching and mentoring program with them called Aspire. Could not speak highly enough of Aspiring Solicitors or Aspire. They're both just brilliant. So through that coaching and mentoring, I got loads of advice and coaching about, how to go about securing a training contract or a vacation scheme. So I did my assessment centre with my future firm in February of 2021. Off the back of that, I got my vacation scheme, which I did in July. And then, after that vacation scheme, I got a training contract offer, which was great. Accepted that. And now I'm a future trainee. So that's a little bit about me. And that's my journey so far. So the first question we do get a lot is often, how many law firms should you look at applying to? Now, this sounds like a little bit of a cop-out answer. I had to think about this, and I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all answer to this. I do think it's worth applying to as few or as many firms that fit your criteria. So you want to apply firms that fit your criteria and as well, you could see yourself having a legal career with them that you would enjoy. For me personally, I kind of took a really risky approach and just applied to one firm. Now, even though that did work out for me, I would recommend sort of applying to more, but I would say no more than 5. Let me know in the chat if you disagree though, because I would like to hear from you about, how many you've applied to and how many, you reckon is better number. That's the first thing I'd say. Now, to sort of thanks, Dave. Now, to go about researching firms, because that's another question people often ask. It's, how do you find out about these firms? How do you research them? For me, my starting point was even before you go into the research. You want to get to know yourself. You want to get to know what you want out of your career, what you're interested in. Do you want to work internationally? Do you want the opportunity to sort of collaborate internationally? Do you want, what sort of area of law, what sort of practice areas appeal to? All of that sort of thing. You also want to think about, I guess, quality of training. Oh, I'm going to pause here because there's a question from Soph. Actually, I'll come to your question after this one, if that's okay. Soph. Oh, no. Yeah, Soph. So when you want to think about sort of your training, the quality of work, you want to think about, all these different factors. So for me, my starting point was the Legal Cheek Most list. Now, that Legal Cheek Most list, cannot speak highly enough about the firm's Most list because, You literally just go into it and you can filter by criteria, you can filter by, various different options. And from that, you can find firms that fit your criteria. So I said to myself, I want a small trainee cohort because, I want people to know who I am. I want to sort of know everyone who I'm working with in my cohort. So based on that, but I also didn't want like far too few. So I sort of said 10 and 20. So I looked at the firms between 10 and 20, then looked into them a little bit further. Then from there, I sort of went onto their websites, their news section on their websites, to see what sort of work they were doing, what sort of practice areas they had, looked at their social medias, podcasts if they had any, all of that jazz, And from there, that was my first starting point for researching. So you kind of want to look at everything and do a little bit of a deep dive. Before I move on to the next sort of commonly asked question, I'll address your question, so thanks so much for waiting. So in terms of, you have an interview tomorrow and you're super nervous. When asked why international, do I have any tips? Now, so for me, I kind of said that I picked an international firm for me. My personal interest was because I wasn't born in this country. I moved here when I was about 3, and then I also did a year abroad. So that year abroad was one of the best things I did, like I said. So be international has always been part of who I am. So I wanted a firm that had that in its sort of how it is. I don't know if I've answered that well. So it was personal for me. So I think what I would recommend is draw upon something that's personal for you. Only you can sort of know why international, really. Sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but tell me a little bit about what interests you about an international firm. Is it that you get to work with people from all over the world? Is it, the fact of different societal impacts, like the societal impacts sort of rippling throughout globally rather than just locally? There's so many different things. It's unique to you. So just feel free to let me know in the chat. We can sort of talk about it a little bit more. And Connor, you've said you're personally aiming to apply for at least 20 to 30. Now, I think that does sort of sound in theory like it'd be a good idea because, the more you apply to, the more likely to get a training contract that's what some people think. But the thing is, if you're looking at 20 to 30 firms, you're kind of not going to be able to put a tailored application in. Because, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but you want to tailor your applications to each and every firm. You want to like each and every firm that you've put an application with. So if, you're applying to 20, 30 firms that all are different, it's just going to make things a little bit tricky in tailoring. I remember in my interview during my assessment centre, I was personally asked, which other firms have you applied to and why? And I explained to them the firms that I had considered applying to, but then didn't, and the reasons why I considered applying for them. I think it's important that you know what you're looking for in a firm. And if the 20 to 30 are similar, fair play. But every firm is different. And if, you have to could you confidently say you'd be happy working for any firm in those 20 to 30? I think that's something worth thinking about, Connor. And so many reasons you want to move away. Thought of being able to do that while progressing my legal career sounds like it would be a dream come true. That's great, Soph. That genuinely is really good because, you're genuinely interested into it. You're genuinely interested in doing that. And if you can talk about that passionately in an interview, that's all you need, because you don't necessarily need to have right answers in an interview, because there is no such thing as a right answer. It's just about being able to speak passionately about what's going on for you and why you're interested. So if you talk about sort of the opportunity to do an international secondment, I would recommend as well, look into your firm's international secondment stats. Legal Cheek, again, sorry to plug, but Legal Cheek does sort of have that opportunity for you to have a look at those stats. So I'd recommend doing that as well. Oh, hi, Jordan. Thanks for joining. I can see there are so many of you joining, which is really nice. I think the next question I'll go to, unless anyone has any, but please keep putting your questions in the chat, because I love hearing from you. I like hearing your opinions on things. So another question, so linked kind of to a question I was addressing, like a comment I was addressing earlier about applying to 20 to 30 firms. Another question we do get is, how do you choose the firms you apply to? Now, once you've gotten a feel for the firms based on your initial research, you want to get to know them a little bit deeper. For me, one of the ways I did that is I attended the Legal Cheek virtual fair, and that was an amazing time because I got my opportunity to ask the questions that I couldn't find on their website. I got to, find out more, but then more importantly, when I was speaking to them, I got a feel for the type of people they were. I got a feel for, would I be able to work with these people on a daily basis? If the answer was yes, then great. It's definitely somewhere I want to apply for. But if it wasn't somewhere that I could see myself work, like if I couldn't see myself working with the people on a daily basis, then, I ruled it out. And it's a little bit of a cutthroat way to go about it, but you have to think about your career and where you're going to be happiest. So what I did is, I personally love a good comprehensive booklet of just information for me to go through. So I made a little thing on my laptop of all the things I knew about the firm and all the things I wanted to know about the firm. So for me, a big thing, I guess, is at some point, I might want to have a family. So I looked into maternity leave. I tried to find online maternity leave policies. There's nothing on there online. So when I attended the fair, I asked the graduate recruitment team that question, and they were able to answer that for me. And I was able to work out, okay, is this somewhere I want a long-term career with? Is it legitimately somewhere that, if I needed maternity leave, I could have that and live my best life and come back to work after. So that's what I personally did. Interestingly enough, through that virtual fair, I connected with a then trainee at the time at my future firm. And it's really lovely because I was able to sort of send him some further questions that I thought of later on. And he was so sweet and he did reply. So when I did get my training contract offer, he was one of the first people to message me on LinkedIn to ask to sort of congratulate me, and it was really, really sweet. So it's you make those connections early, and as members of the firm know me now that I might not necessarily know because I've asked so many questions and they've seen me ask questions at the fairs and they've talked about me off the back of that. So strongly recommend doing that. Now, Soph, if you chose commercial law, how do you demonstrate a passion for that? So for me personally, I chose commercial law because I think, give me 1 second, I just need a quick drink of water. So I chose commercial law because I really like the thought of doing a piece of work or acting for a client or doing something that, has an effect on society. Like if you think about two companies deciding to merge, that affects all of the employees. That affects, the legal market as it sort of is as a whole. That affects the everyday consumer. That affects so many things. So the thought of being able to work in an area where I can shape what's going on in society, that's actually quite interesting. And it's something that just sort of appealed to me. And That's why I wanted to go down the commercial law route. But then another reason I really love it is because with commercial law, you end up having long-term relationships with your clients. It's not just a one-off, okay, I'll represent you and then I'll never hear from you again. It's they come back to you and they ask you for more advice, or they ask you to do some more work for them. And you get to see the actual consequences of your actions, which I just think is really fun. Those are my personal reasons for going for commercial law. Again, it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but again, you need to find what's interesting to you, Soph. And off the back of what's interesting for you, Soph, you'll then be able to talk passionately about that. And Kwabena, tips for vacation schemes. Well, that's actually a question that I had down in my commonly asked questions. I will jump to that. And I think my top tips are 3 things: be enthusiastic, be engaged, and be yourself. Now, if you've gotten to the vacation scheme stage, congratulations, well done for that. But you also need to know now that they know you're clever enough to be here. And, they know you've got the qualifications. They know that, on paper, you are an amazing candidate. Now, the one thing that I have heard from, graduate recruiters is that people fall down in vacation schemes when they don't engage and when they're not enthusiastic, because they want to see someone that, they can put in front of their clients who will sort of engage with what the clients are talking about. If you're not able to engage, then it makes it a little bit tricky for them. And then they want to see your enthusiasm. They want to know that, you're definitely in it with this firm, and this is the firm that, you will be with for at least 2 years if you're doing your training contracts with them. So be enthusiastic. And most of all, do be yourself, because, you need to work out whether this is a firm that you want to work with. So if you're putting on what you think they want to see, that's going to exhaust you long term. You want to sort of see if this is a firm that suits you and a firm that's a fit for you. So by being yourself, you can work that out more easily. I hope that helped, Kwabena. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much for that compliment. I'm sure you'll absolutely smash tomorrow. Please do keep putting your questions in the chat, because not just you, Soph, of course you, Soph, but everyone as well, because I do love hearing from you guys. Tell me more, ask me some more questions, because, I just feel like it's more interesting than me going through this without your questions directly. No worries at all, Kwabena. So the next question that we often get, before I go into that, Hi Sasha, any advice for a non-law student from a non-Russell group looking to apply for VAC schemes? Again, I think applying for I think my advice will be the same no matter what your background is, no matter what you've studied. You need to first of all work out why law. And why is that the career you want to go into? Because there are so many careers that exist, really. So you need to, first of all, work out why is it that you are drawn to do law. And off the back of that, you then also need to work out what sort of firm you want to work in. Do you want to work in an international firm? Do you want to work in a US firm? Do you want to work in a national firm? Do you want to work in a high street or a boutique firm? The options are endless, really. So first you need to work out why law, why you, and from that you can sort of start crafting your applications quite well, because you know a bit more about yourself. Now, I'm not sure what degree you did do, Sasha. If you could let me know in the chat, that'd be helpful as well. But with that degree comes transferable skills, and it comes, experiences that you won't have had if you did a law degree. So, for example, I did At A-level, I did biology, drama and English lit. Now, with biology, that doesn't really seem like, oh, that's a perfect fit for law. But a big part of my biology A-level was having to research, and it was having to look into things and dig in, having to sort of dig deep. So by sort of thinking about the skills that you've acquired from that degree and the skills you've acquired from work experience generally, that's going to help you. Oh, so you did accounting and management with a placement year. That's helpful. Thank you, Sasha. So accounting and management, that's going to have some valuable skills that, you wouldn't have gotten through a law degree. Hone in on those skills that you've developed and learned from that. And you also want to hone in on what you did during your placement year, because again, that's got some valuable skills that you've picked up from that. So I'd strongly recommend you're not at a disadvantage by not doing a law degree at all. Like, you don't necessarily have to have done a law degree to be a lawyer, as you know. Like, there are a lot of amazing lawyers who didn't do law degrees, but you need to present the qualities and skills that you have and how you meet the skills and qualities that the firm is looking for. That's how I'd go about doing that. That's what I had to do as a law student myself. So, it's the same regardless of what your background is. I hope that helps, Sasha. And Matthew asks, what can the firm do in order to stay competitive in the legal market? Well, that's an interesting question. Give me a second to have a quick think about it. I would say that every firm that sort of still exists has its unique selling points. But at the end of the day, the point of a law firm is to make profit and to make money. And, to be the person who, competes and makes money, you need to make sure you're getting clients. So I think law firms build up client relationships. So I think you could, if I was answering the question, I would probably recommend maybe talking about, the firm's unique selling point. I don't necessarily know which firm it is, but their unique selling point, and talking about driving that up, and then maybe discussing some of the things that are more and more used. So the presence of social media, the presence of podcasts, like some firms have started podcasts, you've got a wide variety of things that firms are doing to compete in this market. So I think it's about adapting to what the world is now, if that helps, Matthew. So I don't know if that's been clear or not, but I do hope that helps, Matthew. And Sasha, no worries at all. I'm glad I could help at all. So yeah, please do keep putting your questions in the chat. But if you don't have any questions at this immediate time, I think I'll move to the next question that I had on my list, which is basically, people often say that they don't have much legal work experience. Is that going to hold them back? Is that going to sort of turn firms away from them? And similarly to Sasha's question, I don't think so. I think it's all about transferable skills. It's all about the qualities you do have, the qualities you've acquired through, part-time jobs, volunteering, anything you've done that has given you the skills necessary to be a lawyer. So for me personally, before I received my training contract offer, I was working in customer service. Now, the ability to communicate with people and the ability to break things down into simple language is such a crucial point in customer service. I was sort of technical support customer service, so being able to explain things quite simply and put things frankly, simply, honestly, that was such an important skill to have, and that's equally as important in a law firm. context, because your client at the end of the day isn't coming like to you for you to tell them, okay, so you do have a contract because there's an offer and acceptance and consideration. Like, they don't care about that. They don't care about, the law. They care about how it matters to them. So, you need to be able to break down, big legal concepts into little things. Like in the car the other day, I was explaining to my mum how, to run a business, you don't necessarily need a company, and explaining the laws of, companies and partnerships to her. That's something that you might need to do for a client. So it's very important that, you work on all these different transferable skills: your communication, your organisation, your attention to detail, your ability to prioritise, all of those stuff. So essentially, your work experience your legal work experience or lack thereof won't hold you back. So we've had a question from Legally Inspired. How would you answer a question? What are your strengths and how would you use these to the best effect during your training contract? Now, I would say you have to think about what your strengths are, first of all. Sounds a little bit silly. So I think one of my personal strengths is that I'm quite resilient. I can bounce back from quite a lot. So my resilience means that in a training contract context, I'll be able to, deal with not so great things happening, like working late, for example, like working till 3-4 a.m. That won't faze me because I am quite resilient. And if something happens for a client that's a little bit disappointing, I'll be able to bounce back and work out where we're going next. So very much, I do think that's how I personally structure it. Obviously, when I'm writing it, I'd probably craft it a little bit better, but reflect on your strengths and think about how your strengths will work for the training contract context. That's what I would recommend. Now, we've had a question about, do I think that firms will allow the LPC for training contracts starting in 2024? I think every firm has taken a different approach with that. So I would strongly recommend that with the firms that you are interested in, you give them a call and you talk to their graduate recruitment teams and you ask them, this is what I've got the LPC, or I'm doing the LPC. Will you take me in? Or what sort of what adjustments do you have? I think different firms have different approaches, but if you give them a call or if you drop them an email, either one, they'll be able to tell you a little bit clearer about what they want to do or what they want out of you. I hope that answered your questions. Legally Inspired and user 70, etc., etc. I am coming up to time, so I will have to stop the live at around past. But please, please, please feel free to get your sort of questions in now, or I'll sort of finish up on a question that I think probably works for everyone. So, what's the one thing I wish I'd known before I started the process? And for me, the one thing I do wish I'd known is just try to be your authentic self. Like, it sounds so cheesy. I've heard a lot of people say it. I used to roll my eyes like, what do you mean be myself? But at the end of the day, there'll be people who come in who've had two ones firsts, people who've had this experience or that experience. But the only thing that no one has that you have is yourself and your personality, So I think it's really important to stick true to who you are throughout the process. Like, it sounds so weird to say, but like in my interviews, I was making jokes and laughing with partners and, graduate recruiters and senior associates, just because that's what I do. I make jokes when I feel a little bit nervous, or I just kind of want to make a joke. So I stuck to that, and I think that's something that made me stand out a little bit. I think as well, I did mention this earlier, but by being yourself, it means that if you can work out whether a firm is right for you. Because if you make a joke, and if you're like me and you like to make jokes, if you make a joke and no one laughs, you know that you wouldn't necessarily feel the most comfortable in that environment. And you want to develop and be trained in an environment that you feel comfortable in. I think, yes, it's good to have a little bit of discomfort to help you grow, but ultimately, you want somewhere that you feel a little bit at ease, because you're going to be spending them, in those 2 years that you're training, a lot of your time is going to be with that firm and with those people. So if you have to hide a part of you or hide who you are, you're just not going to be comfortable. So I think that brings us to just over past. So I do think I will have to wrap up now. I'm just gonna give an extra little minute just in case anyone has any final questions, because I do want to get to as many questions as I can. I'll just let it get to 32 and then I'll go. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please do follow Legal Cheek, because through there you'll be notified next time we go live. Follow us here. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next live, and I hope you enjoy our TikToks. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.